Kim Bo-ra got married, seemed happy, and out of nowhere, divorce, just 11 months later. But the strangest part isn't the end of the marriage, it's the silence. Apparently, no scandal, no cheating, no clues. And that's where the real problem lies. Because once you understand why so many couples in Korea break up so quickly, everything starts to make sense. And maybe you'll never look at Korean love the same way again. Until recently, Kim Bo-ra was considered a symbol of a new generation of Korean actresses. She began gaining attention with roles in dramas like Sky Castle, Her Private Life, and Love Scene Number, winning over audiences with her subtle yet charismatic style. Always private about her personal life, she surprised fans in June 2023 by announcing her marriage to director Jo Baroon after 3 years of dating. Baroon is a less familiar name to the general public, but within the Korean entertainment industry, he holds a certain level of prestige. He directed the short film The Nature of a Relationship, starring Kim Bo-ra herself, and it was behind the scenes of that production that their relationship began. According to reports at the time, the two kept everything under wraps until they felt confident that the relationship was serious enough to go public. They dated for about 3 years, and the wedding was held privately, away from the spotlight in an intimate ceremony for close friends and family only. At the time, Bo-ra shared a simple message, saying she felt grateful to have found someone to share life with, and that was it. From then on, silence. No public appearances, no media coverage as a couple. A quiet pattern, but one that seemed to work, and one that's not unusual among Korean celebrity couples, as we well know. Then, less than a year later, in May 2025, came the divorce announcement. The official statement simply said that the two had decided to separate after long conversations and reflection, citing personality differences. It was a formal, cold message that offered no concrete explanation. Both stated they would not speak publicly about the matter again, and they disappeared. There was no scandal, no public fight, no accusations. It was as if the marriage had dissolved into thin air, calm, quick, almost invisible. And that's exactly what stands out, because a relationship that seemed so stable, so grounded, ended before even reaching its first anniversary. And when that happens, the question isn't who was at fault, it's what's pushing so many Korean marriages to fail. But that answer, the most uncomfortable one, only begins to emerge when we look beyond the couple. This kind of quiet, early separation isn't an exception in South Korea. It's a symptom of a phenomenon that's been studied for years now, the collapse of the institution of marriage among Koreans. Let's look at the data. In 2024, South Korea recorded the lowest marriage rate in its history. Only 190,000 marriages across the entire country, a drop of more than 40% compared to 2010. At the same time, the divorce rate, especially among couples married for less than 2 years, has risen proportionally. What's most striking is that the average age for first marriages now exceeds 33 for men and 31 for women. In other words, Koreans are marrying less later and with less willingness to endure what doesn't work. This didn't come out of nowhere. Historically, Korean society has always valued marriage as a cornerstone of adult life. Getting married, having children, and maintaining the family's reputation was almost an obligation. But that ideal has collapsed with the new generation. Young Koreans today are overwhelmed by a culture of performance. They work too much, earn too little, face an extremely high cost of living, and most of all, no longer believe that marriage brings emotional stability. On the contrary, many see it as just another burden. There's also a strong gender component here. Korean women, like Kim Bo-ra, have become increasingly independent and successful. They no longer accept the traditional dynamic where the woman takes care of the home while the man provides. But in practice, many men still expect that kind of relationship. The result? A clash of expectations, unbalanced relationships, silent breakups. Kim Bo-ra may have been just another name in the headlines, but what lies behind the end of her marriage reflects a Korea that no longer believes in happily ever after. When we say Korean marriage is in crisis, we're not just talking about fewer people getting married or the rising divorce rates. We're talking about something deeper. The meaning of marriage has changed, especially among celebrities, and often it has stopped being an emotional commitment and turned into a public image contract. In the Korean entertainment industry, marriage is seen as a public event, not just a private one. This applies to idols as well as actors, actresses, and directors. A marriage can boost or destroy a career depending on how it's perceived by the public. That's why many famous couples only reveal their relationships when they're already about to walk down the aisle, as Kim Bo-ra and Jo Baroon did, as well as Son Ye-jin and Hyun Bin, or Song Hye-kyo and Song Joong-ki. The fear of judgment, losing fans, or sparking scandals often forces artists to live under extreme pressure, and that alone can erode the emotional foundation of any relationship. In addition, there's a subtle yet very real practice where agencies and PR teams shape a couple's behavior according to what best fits their public image. Calculated appearances, neutral statements, coordinated social media posts, all designed to make things look perfect, even when they're not. The problem? Real relationships don't survive inside marketing scripts. And this doesn't happen only with celebrities. In Korea in general, marriage carries a heavy load of social expectations. There's a strong cultural pressure to marry well, someone financially stable, well-educated, and from a good family background. Love often comes in as a secondary factor. This leads to marriages based on superficial compatibility, which begin to crumble over time when real intimacy sets in. Another factor is the rise of individualism. The younger generation is rejecting the old model of sacrifice in the name of family. They don't want to lose themselves just to make a marriage work, and maybe that was the case for Kim Bo-ra, an established independent actress who probably encountered resistance when it came to giving up her identity to fit into a traditional mold. For decades, the structure of marriage in South Korea was clear. The man worked, the woman stayed home to take care of the house and children. Even if both had university degrees, even if the woman also worked outside, the mental, emotional, and domestic burden almost always fell entirely on her. This model, inherited from traditional Confucianism and reinforced by post-war Korean society, is still very much alive today, and it's one of the main reasons for dissatisfaction in modern marriages. Now think about Kim Bo-ra's profile. A young, wealthy, successful woman, respected in the entertainment industry, with creative freedom and high visibility. She spent the last few years building a solid career and gaining public recognition as an actress. Why would someone like her accept a relationship model where her opinions come second, where her daily routine has to revolve around her partner, where she has to silence her desires to maintain harmony at home? That's the point. Korean women are no longer accepting that role, and because of that, they're becoming more selective, or simply rejecting marriage as a life goal altogether. In 2023, a study by the Korean Institute for Health and Social Affairs showed that over 65% of women in their 20s and 30s said they had no intention of getting married, or would only consider it if they found a partner who embraced complete equality in the relationship. Another striking figure, 71% of women said they preferred the emotional stability of living alone rather than submitting to traditional family expectations. For many Korean women, marriage is no longer a dream, it's a risk. Because even in younger couples, there's still resistance among many men to accept that a woman may have more visibility, more income, or more voice. The result? Short marriages, early divorces, relationships where women would rather leave than lose themselves. And more importantly, the stigma around divorce, especially for women, is fading. Just a few years ago, a divorced woman would be seen as a failure or damaged goods. Today, it's increasingly common to see actresses, entrepreneurs, and even everyday women facing divorce as a fresh start, not a source of shame. When Kim Bo-ra announced her divorce quietly and without apologizing to the public, she did exactly that. She ended a relationship that no longer made sense and moved on. No drama, no scandal, no begging for approval. This shows that in today's Korea, a woman's greatest show of strength might simply be refusing to play a supporting role in a story she's writing herself, and that changes everything. It's also important to remember that Korean culture deeply values silence and avoiding scandal. That's why many divorces happen quietly. But just because something is silent doesn't mean it was peaceful. It may have just been suppressed. Kim Bo-ra's case is striking because it exposes this pattern, a relationship that looked perfect on the outside but couldn't survive real-life intimacy. And that ends with a formal statement, leaving no room for vulnerability. And when relationships become performative contracts, wear and tear is inevitable. Couples don't break up because there's no love. They break up because of constant pressure, lack of freedom, mismatched expectations, and overwhelming social judgment. That's what's killing so many marriages in Korea. It's not infidelity, and it's not lack of romance. It's the weight of having to play a role, every day, even at home. And maybe that's why so many people related to this, even if they couldn't quite explain why. Because deep down, what ended between Kim Bo-ra and Jo Baroon wasn't just a marriage. It was the illusion that a well-positioned relationship is enough to make things work. And it's not. The divorce of Kim Bo-ra and Jo Baroon might seem like just another celebrity breakup, but it's much more than that. It's a clear reflection of a new era, of a country that is rethinking, or rather deconstructing, what it means to love, to marry, to share a life. We're no longer in the 1990s, where appearances mattered more than real happiness. The new generation doesn't want to live a romantic lie in the name of tradition. If you enjoyed this video, don't forget to like, subscribe to the channel, and hit the notification bell so you don't miss the next ones. And of course, drop a comment below and tell us what you think about all this. Do you think Koreans are really giving up on love, or are they just looking for something more real? Let's keep the conversation going in the comments.